So Mafruza was a shanty town of around 10,000 inhabitants, situated next to the port of Alexandria in Egypt. Built on top of a Greco-Roman necropolis carved into stone in the 4th century BC, the neighborhood also went by the name Gebel, the rock. Mafruza was one of many shanty towns, or ashwayat, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Alexandria, and one of quite a few cities of the dead in Egypt more generally, and most of them were in Cairo. The area had electricity, but no running water or sewage system. Most of the inhabitants had come from Upper Egypt from the 70s onwards to find work in the city. They would do odd jobs at the port, or work at the Misr textile factory, or sort and resell refuse. They were mechanics, carpenters, drivers. Some were better off than others. Abu Hosni was a freelance docker at the port and lived in a perpetually flooded house next to the neighborhood dump. Mohammed Katab is better off, factory worker by day, the owner of Mafruza's shop in the afternoon, and also the much-loved local imam. In the late 90s, a French archaeologist discovered the cemetery camouflaging as the foundation of the Mafruza community of self-produced space. The largest cemetery of its kind in the Mediterranean, it was uncovered during the last stages of the construction of an elevated highway connecting the harbor to the main route to Cairo in 1996. Archaeologists were excitedly working to excavate the site from 1997 until 2000, when the dig was closed down in order to continue the construction work. It was around that time that Emmanuelle de Maurice followed the French archaeologist to this place where the living were shacking up with the dead. But she soon abandoned the mystique of this cohabitation and spent instead the next few years filming the people of Mafruza themselves. In 2003, this is a map of the archaeological site, and the red bit is the shantytown. The long line is the overpass. And the Google map is what Mafruza looks like today. It's basically just a yard with cargo containers. And so in 2003, de Maurice had accumulated over 150 hours of rushes. Along with her producer, Jean Grouillot, who's the screenwriter of films like Rivette's Paris Belongs to Us and Truffaut's Jules le Gym, she edited and released the first 2 parts of the 5-part, 12-hour-long documentary in 2007, around the same time as the neighborhood of Mafruza was demolished to expand the port. And this is precisely why this is what it looks like today. And this is Mohammed in the housing project where all the people of Mafruza were relocated to after the demolition. So this housing project was around 20 kilometers from the city center, which made access to most forms of employment very difficult for them. The heavily criticized project was part of Mubarak's Promise, a subsidized housing scheme that Mubarak had announced in the run-up to his election in 2005. The name of this housing project until 2011 was Mubarak City. After the revolution, however, the people renamed it after their old neighborhood, Mafruza. So despite the remarkable downsizing from 150 hours of rushes to a mere 12 hours, the first feature that stands out with Mafruza is its unusual length. Given the film's predilection for the quotidian, de Maurice really just follows, people's everyday activities and, just sits around with people just chatting to each other, etc. We see them cooking and sleeping. So given the film's predilection for the everyday, we could perhaps quite easily imagine a significantly shorter version of this film with tighter editing. One less wedding procession here, one less song by Hassan, no reason to hang out in Mohammed's shop for so long, etc. So duration is clearly a structural concern for de Maurice, and as such, it begs a series of questions.